Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel, mgrahamsews. This video tutorial is for the Leannan Bag by DEJA Designs, and it's a gorgeous bag, as you can see, with lots of options. Before I discuss everything about this bag, there's just a couple things I wanted to go over. First is that this video is filmed like a sew-along. What that means is there's no parts that are sped up, no parts are cut out. You see me sew everything in real time. However, there are times where we have to sew something more than once. So for example, we sew side connectors more than once. I will show you how to do it once, then I go off camera and I sew the second one. The reason for this is it makes the tutorial too long if I'm showing you how to sew something more than once, and I just don't feel that you need to sit and watch me sew something more than once. If you need to see it, you can just rewind the video and go right back to that step and watch it again. The other thing I wanted to note is that I do not show any pattern pieces, no measurements, no rulers, no nothing on video, and the reason for this is for the protection of the designer, but also because I often film during the testing phase, and sometimes things change during testing, so I don't want my tutorials to be affected. So this way here, not giving any measurements doesn't affect my tutorial. So you will need to have your pattern either open beside you or open on your computer so that you can follow along. Now that I've mentioned those, let's discuss some of the features of the bag. Now, this bag does have lots of variations and add-ons, and some of them I've done, and I do show you how to do that. I do try to walk you through some of the variations that I don't do, and I do show you how to do them, just sort of walking you through so that you have an idea how to sew them up. So one of the variations I did was attaching my handles to the bag using hardware, so you can see it here. The bag does have an option for a handle on the front using pre-made handles, so round or square, whatever hardware you choose to use. So I've attached them there, and I do show you how to do that, and I've used the shoulder strap length. It also has an option for adding a crossbody strap, which I really like adding to all my bags, and I did do the variation with the long strap anchor here, or adjustable strap anchor here on the side. I just like how it looks. I also added the front zipper pocket with the zipper overlay, and it is a quite big zipper pocket. It fits my phone. So you see there, my phone fits inside. On the top, when you look down into the bag, it does have a zipper. Now there is an option for just adding the zipper to your top interior closure, but I did do the recessed zipper panel option, and I do again walk you through how to do the things that I didn't do. And if anything is confusing, you can always email Andrea and she'll help walk you through, or you can just comment in the video, and as soon as I see it, I will reply and try to help as best I can. But again, do follow the instructions in the pattern because they are very well written and very thorough, and Andrea really explains herself very well. Inside, we have a zipper pocket again, so you have a zipper pocket here. And on the other side, we have a slip pocket, which is divided, and it's perfect for putting things that you don't want lost in the bottom of your bag. It's a nice, roomy bag, will fit everything you need inside your bag, lots of room inside. There are lots of options to this bag, so you get to choose how you want the bag to be. You get to customize it to your liking and to your needs. Every bag you make can be different. It's a really fun sew, and it's worth the time it takes to cut everything out and to sew it, because as you can see, it makes a really beautiful bag. I love this bag. Originally I was going to make it and give it away, but I'm now thinking I'm going to keep this one for myself because I just love this fabric that I used. It's gorgeous. So again, this is the Leannan bag that we are going to sew together. I'm going to walk you through all the steps of making this bag. So let's get started making our bags. So the very first thing you're going to want to do is read through the entire pattern. As always, this is very important to do, but with this pattern, it's really important to do because this pattern has a lot of variations and add-ons. So there may be things that you're going to omit or that you're going to want to add. So you really want to read through and make note of that, because you may not have to add one thing and then you may need to scroll through the pages of the pattern and go towards the end of the pattern to find how to do the variation or add-on that you're doing. And for me, I am going to be doing some of the add-ons and variations. So when I'm sewing, I'm going to need to stop and scroll through the pattern and go to where the pages are for the variations. So I do apologize because I'll have to scroll and stop while I'm doing that, just so that I can be walking you through how to do them properly. And one of them is that I'm not using the metal handles or the wooden handles that are suggested in the pattern. So I'm actually doing the handles that are attached to the front of the bag using hardware. So that's just an example. So when you're reading through the pattern, you can make the decision on what you want to add or not add, so that when you go to cut out your pattern pieces, you'll know what you need to cut and not cut. So once you've done that, you can go ahead and cut out all your pattern pieces. You can gather all your hardware like I did here. I've even cut my zips. Now in the pattern, she does give instructions for making an adjustable strap. However, I'm going to use some webbing for mine. I just really liked how it looked with it. So I'm going to use some webbing for mine. Now our handles that I'm attaching to my bag, because I am doing the handles instead, so I'm doing shoulder straps, are folded like your adjustable straps. So when I'm folding them, when I show you how to do that, you'll fold them the exact same way as you do with the adjustable strap. You'll make your measurements for where you're going to cut holes to attach your rivets, or you can sew it. So it's the same thing. I will put in the bottom in the links below a tutorial for how to make an adjustable strap, just so that you can have that if you want to watch that, just to refer to. So I have gathered all my hardware, and like I said, I'm attaching my handles with this hardware here. Now I've gone ahead and I've cut all my pieces out, as I mentioned, and I've interfaced them all. And I've also gone ahead and made the markings as given in the pattern. There's some markings you need to make for the centers. And then there's also some markings that I made for measurements, because I don't show rulers or pattern pieces or anything like that. I don't give measurements. So I needed to make some of my measurements before we began. So I do have that all done. As you can see here, even on this piece, on my front piece, I have a measurement and a mark here made for that. So that's just all done, and the reason for that is I don't have to stop the tutorial as much to go off camera and do it, and it's just a little less me getting up and down. And as you can see here, I've even got my straps all folded already, but I will still show you how to fold them and how to do that. So I'm just going to move this out of the way for now. And again, this pattern does have lots of options, and one of them is for the different handles. And you can use the metal handles, the wooden handles, the pre-made handles, you can use those. Now I'm not using that. However, I want to try and just sort of walk you through how to attach them. And you do have different main exteriors to cut. If you are using a wide handle, you will cut your C1. If you are using a rounded handle, you will cut C2. If you are using your handles like I'm doing, where you attach them to the bag with the hardware, you are going to use the rounded handle, so it looks like this. This is how it looks. So that's the one you'll want to cut. But again, refer to the pattern and the cutting chart for all this information, so you ensure you cut all the correct pattern pieces for the bag that you are making. Now, for the handles, if you're using the rounded or the wide handles, you do have a pattern piece that you need to attach, and it is, I'm just scrolling through, sorry, just so I can find it. It is going to be your handle connector. So the handle connector, again, will be dependent on what handles you're actually using. But these are sewn and attached fairly easily, and you will have a piece, and I know it's going to be wider than this, but you will have a piece that will look like this, for example. You're going to need to draw a line down the center of the pattern piece, and I'm just scrolling down so I make sure I tell you how to do this correctly. Sorry about that. I know you just got to wait a few minutes. We will go back to the beginning again, but I just wanted to walk you through this. So you will have a pattern piece. You'll draw a line down the center of those pattern pieces. Then you'll fold the long raw edges in to meet in the center. So just like I have done on this piece, you'll fold the long raw edges in to meet in the center. Then, once you've done that, you'll take your pattern piece and you will place the handle connector on top of the main exterior. So whatever exterior you're using for whatever handle you're using, and you'll place it so that those folded edges are against the exterior, just like this. And you know what? I'm going to flip this over to this side so you'll see it. So you'll place it on the exterior just like this, centered. So you're going to center it and place it on your exterior. Now, it says here that you'll position the handle connector according to the markings on the pattern piece. So you will need your paper pattern piece to mark it, but it will be centered. Once you have that, you'll place your handle on top of the handle connectors. So you'll place your handle on the handle connector, and then you will fold this piece under so that it's like that up to the marking that's given on the pattern piece. Now the pattern piece has a mark for how far down you're going to fold your connector piece. So you're going to fold it down. So I flipped this over. So right now I'm looking at the edges that we folded in. So I flipped it over so you can, so that's how you're working on it, because you want to be able to fold it down. So you want to fold it where that line is on your pattern piece, fold it down so the top folded edge is in line with that mark on the pattern piece. You're going to use some double-sided tape to hold it in place. Then what you do is from the top of the handle connector down, you'll place some double-sided tape. Then you'll remove the paper backing and you'll place the folded handle connector down. So you flip it over and you place it down, lining it up again with where that mark was. And it's the gray area on the pattern piece. And then you're going to place, before you do that, place 2 double-sided tape pieces here, and then you fold it down, you flip it over and put it down. Then you're going to stitch this down. And she gives measurements for where you're going to start and stop stitching. And it's the same thing for your rounded connector. So you place it on here, you fold the edges in to meet in the middle, you put your ring on, your handle on, you fold this down to meet that line on the pattern piece, use some double-sided tape to hold this down once you folded it, place some double-sided tape on top, flip this over, stitch up the sides and down using the measurements she gives in the pattern. Now I know I'm not doing that, and I'm hoping I didn't confuse you too much, but that's how you do that. And when I go to sew, so this here, what this is it's one of the add-ons, and it's the alternative side connectors. And when you see me sew this, you can watch those steps because it's exactly the same as how you're going to attach your handle. So maybe you'll want to watch how I sew this connector to my side piece. It ends up being the same as how we attach our handle connector on the front, just a smaller piece. So you may want to fast forward to that part in the video so that you can watch how that's done, just in case this part just kind of confused you a little bit, which I'm really hoping I didn't. So now I'm going to go back to the beginning because we do need to start back at the beginning. And I'm just scrolling along. Like I said, there's a lot of options in this pattern, a lot of different variations that you can do. And it's really a fun bag to make because it has all these options, and I really like it for that reason, because you can really customize this and really make it your own. Now, in the beginning of the pattern here, she does give the steps for cutting out your zipper overlays. So if you haven't done that already, you can cut out the holes for your zipper overlays now. And I'm just trying to place things back in the order I had it. So you'll cut them out so it'll look like this. So you'll want to get that done. Now, the next step after you have your zipper overlays done is we have our bottom piece, and it's bottom piece E. And then we have our little 2 pieces that we cut out of the bottom piece from the gray area of our pattern piece. And what you're going to do with this, and I just used some of my material that I'm using for my exterior, you'll line up, it's called a stabilizer overlay with the edges, or the rounded edges and the long side edges. So you just line it up, just like this. And then you're just going to stitch this in place. And I know you're probably wondering, well, why are we doing this? But it'll all make sense in the end because we slip our stabilizer into this instead of fusing it in place. Now I've done my center markings on the wrong side of my pattern pieces, so I'm going to have to transfer that center marking after I stitch this in place so that I know where those center markings are on the ends here. So now what we're going to do is we're going to stitch this in place using the seam allowance given in the pattern. Cut all your threads and then stitch the other side. So we're stitching both sides down. And if you're nervous going on curves, what you do is you stop with your needle down, you lift your presser foot up, you pivot on that curve just a little bit, and then you take one stitch, again, needle down, presser foot up, pivot, put your presser foot back down again, take one stitch, and you keep doing that. So it's needle down, presser foot up, take one, pivot, presser foot back down, take one stitch. Needle down, presser foot up, pivot, presser foot down, take one stitch, pivot. You do that all the way around, and that'll help you get nice curves. Now, like I mentioned, I do have the markings here, so I need to transfer them so I can see them on this, and I might not see them on this material. Oh, my scissors just fell. So I've remarked my center markings, and you may need to as well. So go ahead and do that. And then that's how that piece looks. And like I said, at the end, we slip our stabilizer into it and see how nicely it fits. Nice and perfect. But don't slip it in yet. Leave it not in. So just put that off to the side till we need it. Now, as I mentioned, I'm doing the adjustable strap connectors, but the alternative side connectors. However, if you're doing the ones that are in the pattern right on the page that I'm on, what you do is you take your piece and you draw a line lengthwise down the entire center of the connector, sorry. You draw a line down the connector. So I'm just going to skip to that page. Now your piece will be shorter than mine because again, I'm using the alternative one. So you draw a line down the center, then you fold both the raw edges in to meet in the center. And if you're using a material that you can't press with your iron, so you're using a cork or something, you can use double-sided tape to help hold those long raw edges in to meet in the center. Once you do that, you will top stitch the side connectors along both edges using the seam allowance given in the pattern. You can thread your D-ring through the side connector and then use a small piece of double-sided tape to hold it in place. So you'll fold it there. So you'll add a small piece of double-sided tape and you'll fold the bottom half of the side connector to meet, and then you'll fold up the other half to meet just like that. So basically you're covering all raw edges. All your raw edges are going to be on the wrong side. So say this was the short connector and I've slid my D-ring, not slided. So I'm going to grab a D-ring here. Where'd it go? I think I had them out and then I put them away. Oh no, they're right here. There's a lot in here. So say this was the shorter piece, I would slide my D-ring after I've top stitched, thread it through, add a small piece of double-sided tape. Oops. Add a small piece of double-sided tape, fold this down so that it's like that. My D-ring is there. Then I will take the bottom half, fold it up to meet that short raw edge, use some double-sided tape to hold it in place. Then you would place some double-sided tape again on the back here, and then what you do is you take it, and I've got to scroll down because now we're at the handle connector part. And you will attach it to your side exterior using the measurement on the pattern piece or the measurement that is given in the pattern, and you're going to place it centered just like that on top. And then you will stitch it in place. So it'll look like that and stitched in place. And your D-ring, make sure it's towards the top, and the top of your side connector is this smaller edge, not the wider, the smaller edge, just like that. But like I mentioned, I'm doing the alternative side connectors, which go up the entire length of the bag. And again, because there are so many add-ons or variations. You can even skip adding the side connectors and skip an adjustable strap altogether. I do like having an adjustable strap just because it does give you different options for when you're carrying the bag. If you get tired, you have the option to switch to crossbody to make it more hands-free for you. So I do like that option. So I'm just trying to find where the connectors begin. All right, and here we are. We're at where the connectors are. So I've had to scroll through the pattern to find where the connectors are. So same thing like our connectors, the smaller ones. We're going to draw a line down the entire length of the connector in the center and then fold the long raw edges in to meet in the center. And again, if you're using something like a cork or a vinyl, you may need to use some double-sided tape to hold those long raw edges in. Once you have it folded in, you will then place your side connector on the side exterior piece so the long raw edge is facing up. So your raw edge that we folded in to meet in the center is facing up. And you're going to need your pattern piece for this. So you're going to place your pattern piece on top of your exterior side, and then you're going to place your side connector so the raw edges that you folded in are facing you. So again, just like this, it's facing me. You can see my raw edges here facing me. And it's on top of your exterior, but also on top of your pattern piece. You're going to add a small piece of double-sided tape on top of the connector. Now again, I don't show pattern pieces, so I do have the markings made for where I need to have this folded, but I'm just going to pretend that my pattern piece is here. So a small piece of double-sided tape at the top. And don't peel off the backing just yet. Leave the backing on the double-sided tape. So you see I put that small piece there. Now we're going to thread the side connector through our D-ring, just like that. Remove the paper backing. Oops, I removed it completely off my piece. Remove the paper backing from your double-sided tape. And again, you're using your pattern piece, and there's a mark on the pattern piece where you're going to fold the top of the connector down. So the top edge of the fabric is lined up with the top edge of the gray area on the pattern piece, the side connector placement rectangle. But again, because I'm not using pattern pieces, because I don't show them on video, I made a mark on my pattern piece, on my side connector for where that needs to be folded. So I've already gone ahead and done that. So it'll look like this. So you can imagine that's where the gray area is, and I folded it down onto there. And I'm just going to lift this up like that so you can see. It's still facing wrong side up right now. We haven't flipped it over. Now we need to take a piece of double-sided tape, place it along the edge, or along the center, sorry, all the way up. And I don't go all the way to the top because when you stitch, you don't want to have it in where your stitching is or poking out. You don't want to have the peekaboo tape. So now I'm going to remove the paper backing, and you're going to place it so that it is, and I'm just reading, so now we're going to place it so that it is centered on our side exterior. So you know where the center is because the way you folded the double-sided tape, or the connector. So you can just use the center and line it up. I was just reading something to make sure I wasn't going to give you incorrect information. Sorry about that. And you're placing it just like that. And you want to make sure it's centered. Now, you can make sure it's centered. You can go and measure. So that's what I'm doing right now. You just want to make sure it's perfectly centered. And it's good. And I did that off camera. So now that we have that done, what we need to do is then stitch up and down the sides. And there is a mark that you need to make below the D-ring. So you can go ahead and do that. And that's where you will stitch across. So I'm going to need to go off camera to make that mark, but you will come up, you will stitch across at that line and back down. So I'm going to go off camera. I'm going to make that mark that's down from the D ring for where to know where to stop sewing, and then I'll come back and we will continue. All right, so I made the mark, and the mark is from the connector down, and I don't know if you can see it. I'm going to try and find there. You can see the little white line there. That's the marking that we need to make down from the connector. So what we're going to do is we're going to top stitch the side connector onto the side exterior using the seam allowance given in the pattern. You're going to start at the bottom, up one side, then along at that mark we just made, and back down. And you want to make note of what the measurements are for what you're sewing. And when I get to the corner, to avoid the angle stitches, I always like to take that one extra little stitch in the corner, and that just helps prevent some angled stitches. So I put my stitch length to 0, then I return it right back to the stitch length I was using. And back down the other side. And that's how it looks when you have your alternative side connector attached. So I'm going to pause the camera. I'm going to go attach my other one, and then I'll come back and we will continue on with the other parts of our bag. All right, so I've attached that second connector to the remaining side panel piece. So that's how they look. And again, these are the alternative side connectors that I have done. So you may have added the side connectors that were at the top, and they're much shorter than this. So we're going to put these to the side. The next alternative that I'm doing is a zipper pocket on the front of my bag. So for this, you need one of your main exteriors, a zipper overlay, and the zipper pocket pieces. Now you'll want to again refer to the pattern to make sure you have the correct zipper overlay, because there is one for the interior as well. And again, you will cut these out using the pattern and the measurements given in the pattern. So first thing we need to do, I just want to read. Oh, my thing moved over a little bit. And I just want to make sure I have the correct pieces. Yes, because I have them cut out of my exterior. All right, so what you're going to do, and again, I don't show pattern pieces on the video, but you take your handle connector pattern piece. So there's a pattern piece that shows where you're putting handle connectors if that's what you're using, and you lay it down on top of your main exterior, and you're going to line up the top edge where the curve is and lay it there. Now the bottom straight edge of that pattern piece is where you're going to draw a line. You don't have to draw a line, but I did. It just makes it easier than having to hold a pattern piece there, but you can just clip your pattern piece in place. And I'm going to press this in half so I know where the center is. And I'm also going to press my pattern piece in half because we need to have this centered. So it creates a crease when I do that. Now we need to take some double-sided tape. Place it on our connector, or not on our connector, on our overlay. Just like that. And for the overlay, you do need to use a material that is non-fraying. So I'm going to take the center mark of the overlay and place it with the center crease, and I'm also lining up the top straight edge of my overlay with that, either the bottom edge of your pattern piece or the line you made. And I'm choosing to use the line just because it's a lot easier than trying to hold a pattern piece on top while I put my overlay on. And I'm just going to grab this mitt that I have to wipe off the excess chalk. A little bit of water later and my iron will help remove that. So that's how that looks right now with it connected or attached. So now what we need to do is we need to sew around the outer edge of our overlay. Now don't backstitch at the start and stop. You'll leave long thread tails and then we'll pull them through to the back at the end and tie them off. And it just looks a lot nicer when you do it that way. And again, I'm going to take one stitch here just to help prevent angled stitches because this is on the front of my bag. And all I'm doing is putting my stitch length to 0, taking that one stitch, then returning my stitch length back to the length I use and continuing on. Now I'm coming back to where I started. So I'm going to move these thread tails so they're not in the way. And I'm going to stitch very slowly so that I stop right in the hole that I started in. And I'm going to turn my wheel, pull my threads, cut them so they're nice and long. And then what we do is we pull on a thread and it'll cause a little loop to come up in the back and we just pull that thread up. Now I just have to find out which thread this is. And this is where you kind of gotta, this one, because I don't want to pull the wrong thread and then cause a hole or what'll look like a skipped stitch. And there we go. I have all 4 threads pulled through to the back. Now I'm going to tie them off. The other thing you can do after you tie it off, if you're concerned about them becoming unknotted, is you can use a dab of glue, allow it to dry over the knot, and that'll help secure it. I've never had an issue with it coming undone. Be careful how hard you're pulling on your threads because you can break your threads. And I see the white chalk there, so I'm just going to try to remove it. Now we need to cut out this center here so that we can attach our zipper pocket. So rip a hole through the center here and then you just cut along because we got to cut this away so we have a zipper opening. Be careful not to cut your overlay. So lifting it, going from the back, I'm just trimming it away. And this doesn't have to be perfect because this is inside the bag. And this is also why I use duckbill scissors because it acts like a shield between the overlay and the material that I'm cutting. So I know I'm only cutting the overlay. Or not the overlay, sorry, away from, sorry, I guess my brain's not really working today. I'm only cutting the material away from the overlay, so we have that opening. And you can see I'm not focusing on how pretty this looks because it is in the bag, and you're not going to see this after we're done our bag. So see how we have that opening now? So we have it for our zipper pocket. Now, we need to continue with the steps for creating the zipper pocket. So I'm going to scroll up to find the zipper pocket in our lining instructions, just so that I'm walking you through how to properly do this. All right, So we're at that step now. I just want to make sure, and I'm sorry again that we have to keep jumping all over the place, but now we have that opening cut. So the next thing we have to do is take one of our zippers, so our zipper that we're using for our pocket. Like I said, there's so many awesome options with this bag. It's wonderful to have all these different options. So if you haven't already, attach your zipper. And the other thing is I like to decide how I'm going to wear my bag, and because I like to wear it on the right side, I want my zipper to open so that it opens that way. So you see the zipper is going, when it's closed, it's going towards the, you can see here it goes towards the left when I'm holding it up. But if I'm looking at it, it's going towards the right. But when you're looking at it, when it's away from me, it closes towards the left. And that's just because I wear it on my right arm, and it's easier for me when I'm reaching to be able to open and close it this way. So I need to keep note of that. We're going to add some double-sided tape along both edges on the right side of the zipper tape. Oops. Remove the backing. And again, I have to make sure, so it's going that way. Center your zipper, oops, within the zipper window, the opening that we made. Sticking to my hand more than, and I'm trying to get the pull to stay centered. So center your zipper tape in the opening, just like that. So you see how my zipper is centered, and I can check just to make sure, yep, I have it going the right way. So press it down so it's stuck to your tape. Now flip your pattern piece over, and we're looking at the wrong side now. Now we're going to add a piece of double-sided tape to the bottom edge here of the zipper. And you want to place one of your zipper pocket pieces right sides down against the wrong side of your zipper tape. And I can see my stitching from when I did the overlay, so I'm going to line that up with the box from that overlay, but also so that which will be the top edge of my zipper pocket, lines up with the long bottom edge of my zipper. So see, there's the zipper, the bottom, that lines up with the bottom edge of the zipper, but I've kept it within the zipper window opening so that it's centered, because I know my zipper is a little bit longer. So just like that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to turn this over. I'm going to add some clips just to make sure that this does not come out. Turn it over. I'm just making sure I'm telling you right. Now we're going to top stitch along just this bottom edge of the zipper. So you want to top stitch along that bottom edge. And again, don't back stitch, leave long tails. So you leave your long tails and then just start stitching. And what I'm doing is just checking to make sure that I'm stopping at the right spot so that when I go to stitch the next one, it all lines up. So pull your threads to the back and tie them off. And you'll be able to see me do this again when we go to sew the zipper pocket in the lining, but you can always rewind, go back if you need to see this again. And again, you can use some glue here if you want. Just on the knots to help hold it. My hands aren't working. Wouldn't it be wonderful if our hands cooperated with our brains all the time? Okay. So I don't know if you're going to be able to see it. I think you probably can. I've stitched along the bottom edge of the zipper there. So now we're going to press this down, and I'm going to use a clip. I have a nice long clip that's going to hold that down for me so that it doesn't sneak up underneath the next one. So now what we need to do is place some double-sided tape again along the top edge of the zipper. So along that top raw edge of our zipper. And we're going to repeat that, what we did for the zipper pocket down here at the bottom, by attaching it right sides down and lining it up with the top raw edge of the zipper. All right. And what I'm doing too while I'm placing this is I'm making sure that the sides of my pocket stay lined up as well. I added the clip so it holds that down there. You can use a pin if you prefer. So now what we're going to do is we're going to stitch up the short side across the top of the zipper and down to the other short side. And again, don't backstitch, leave long tails. I want to make sure my thread tails are not under my needle. So you start where you stopped originally, right in that same hole. Now when I'm approaching my zipper pull, you'll notice I lift up my presser foot with my needle down and I just zip it out of the way. And that was getting stuck on my machine. And you want to make sure you stop right in that original hole. And if you have to, you can do what I did, which was take a shorter stitch length to make sure you stop in that same hole that you stopped or started in when we stitched across the bottom of the zipper overlay. Pull your thread tails to the back. We're tying them off. Again, be careful how tight you pull or how hard you pull because the thread can break. we need to trim this excess piece, because notice how one piece is longer than the other. We need to trim that so that it is even with the other pocket piece. And I will trim up my zipper after, just so that it is even with the pocket as well. I'll do that after we stitch. And you can take this to your cutting mat and use your rotary cutter and ruler if you want. I just use my scissors. So now what we need to do is we need to fold these bottom edges up toward the wrong side using the measurement given in the pattern, and we need to press it. So I'm going to go off camera because I have to make the measurement, and then I will press it and I will come back and we will stitch the sides of our pocket. Actually, no, we don't need to do that for this. Sorry, this is the exterior. So we can just sew down one side across the bottom and up the other side. We don't need to keep the pocket opening because we will have that with our lining. And I'm just trying to peel back the tape here so that I don't stitch over it. Didn't cut. So trim your threads. And again, this is our exterior pocket, so we didn't need to leave that opening. And now you have your exterior pocket piece completed with your overlay. And it should fit a phone. Let's see. Oh yeah, perfect. It fits my humongo phone. So I'm going to trim the sides here of the zipper. I'll do that off camera. I don't feel you need to sit and watch me do that. Then I'll come back and we will continue on. All right, so I've gotten those zipper ends trimmed, so now they're even. I just wanted to do that just to make sure it didn't get caught in my stitching at all. I mean, it was far enough away, but rather be safe than sorry. So that is how our zipper pocket works or looks. Now, you do have an option to add a slip pocket to your bag, and this can be on the front or the back of your bag, and I'm just trying to scroll through to find the instructions for adding a slip pocket to your bag. So bear with me for just one moment. It's a lot of scrolling to find it. And again, this is in your add-ons and variations, or variations and add-ons, sorry. Like I said, there's a lot. It's a really great bag for customizing it and making it the way you want it to be. So it is coming up. So you have a slip pocket, and you will cut both your exterior and lining piece as per the measurements given in the pattern. Once you have that, you'll place the fabric right side up and your main exterior pattern piece on top of it, lining up the bottom edge. You'll use your pattern piece to cut the slanted edges. Because you're cutting a rectangle, it's not going to be slanted on the sides. Then you can use your pattern piece or your slip pocket pieces. You'll lay them both right sides together and you'll stitch along the top edge. So imagine that these are your slip pocket pieces here. Once they're trimmed up and they're even with the sides of your exterior, you'll stitch along the top edge of the pockets. Then you'll turn the layers so they are now wrong sides together. You'll press it and then you'll top stitch along that top seam. You'll then take the back exterior or your front exterior, it doesn't really matter, whichever you prefer. You'll place it right sides up and you'll place this completed slip pocket on top, also right sides up, and line up the bottom and side edges. Once you have that lined up, you'll then stitch down the side, across the bottom, and up the other side. Now, just a little tip, what I like to do is start in the center, stitch over and up the one side, start in the center here, stitch over and up the other side. And the reason for that is it just prevents things from shifting on me. I just find it's better, but you can go down, across, and up, whichever you prefer. So that's how you do that slip pocket piece. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning, I'm doing handle connectors. So I need to go and find, again, we're going to scroll all the way. So sewn handle shoulder strap option instead of the ready-made handles. And there's lots of variations. There's one that's really cute. It looks like a kitty. You could do rounded handles, rectangle handles, but there are those pre-made metal wooden handles. Now again, like I said, I'm attaching my shoulder straps to my bag using the hardware that I have. So your shoulder straps or your handles, you will cut them using the option and the measurements given in the pattern. So if you're doing a handle, there's one measurement for it. If you're doing the shoulder strap, there's another measurement. And you have different options for the thickness of the handles as well. So what you're going to do, and it's the same thing as if this folding, as I was mentioning, is the same thing as if you were making the adjustable strap. So you're going to have a long piece like this. You're going to draw a line down the center the entire length. If you're using quilting cotton, you'll be able to take this to your iron and press it. But if not, and you're using a material that you can't press with your iron, you'll place double-sided tape on both sides of those lines, fold the long raw edges in to meet the line. If you're using quilting cotton, you'll fold them in to meet the line and you'll press it with your iron. But a little tip, what I like to do is I like to leave a small little gap here. I don't want it to touch right in the center. And the reason for that is now, once we have them folded into the center, we're going to fold this again to enclose all those raw edges. And I don't want all this bulk in this folded edge here. So having them just about 1/16 of an inch away from each other is just enough. And you can see, I hope you can see it, how it just perfectly touches where that fold is. And then you'll press it all the way down, and you'll do that for the other side. And it's the same thing as your adjustable strap. And then there's measurements in the pattern for where to punch holes for your rivets. You'll add your strap ends for your adjustable strap, and then you'll attach your hardware. And again, I'll link that below in the description for a tutorial that I have for that. Now, once we have this done and it's all folded, we're ready to top stitch our handles. Now, if you're not using hardware on the end of your straps, you can fold this short raw edge down. So before you do all this folding, fold your short raw edge down, and you can choose the measurement you want. Then you'll fold everything, and that'll help enclose those raw edges. I also have a tutorial on my YouTube channel, which I'll link below as well, for getting nice clean fringes edges on your straps or handles or even your crossbody strap if you don't want to use hardware. And I'll link that below, and that's just a way to do that to get those finished edges. But I am using hardware, so I'm going to proceed with top stitching down each long edge. Just want to make sure I'm not running out of bobbin. Trim your threads, and then we're going to stitch down the other side. And I'm going back to where I started. I flip it around and start back where I started. It just helps prevent any shifting or twisting of the strap. However, what I also do, just for extra help, is I take it to my iron and I press it. So I spritz it with a bit of water and I press it, and that helps really get it nice and flat. Trimming my threads, and then I'll take this to my iron and I will press it, because I still, even though I did that, I still always get a little bit of twisting, and I don't know why. Probably just do that and it'll get out. Yeah, it does, it helps. So I'm going to stitch the other strap just like I did this. And the nice thing about the straps is you can stitch some stitching down the center if you want. You can do some pretty design on your strap, whatever you want if you choose to. So I'm going to stitch the other strap, and then I'm going to press them so that they're not twisted, and then I'll come back and we will continue on. All right, so as you can see, I've given them a press and they're not twisted anymore. And I just find that when I repress them with my iron, so I go down one side, flip it over, go down the other side, it helps get them nice and flat and gets that twisting out. And I like how, depending on the side of the strap I'm looking at, it looks like two totally different That's really cool. Looks like different material. All right, enough with that. Now we need to move on to attach our handle connectors if this is the option you're using. And as I mentioned at the beginning, I kind of walked you through how to attach them if you're using the rounded handle connectors or the rectangle ones, the pre-made ones. You can use the same steps that I used when I attached my the alternative side connectors. It's the same method with folding them in and everything. So if you're using the handle strap connectors, and it'll depend what style you're using, you'll use your top handle connector placement pattern piece, and that's piece N, and you will lay it on top. Now you can lay it on the right side. I've done mine on the wrong side just because I can't really see when I draw on this, so I've done mine on the wrong side so I can see it. But you'll lay the pattern piece down, and what you can do is you can actually trace out the areas that you cut out from the pattern pieces. So depending on the connector style you're using, you can cut out that area. Now I'm going to grab my connectors out. So much. So there's my connectors that I'm using, and it just looks like these. And you'll want to follow your manufacturer's instructions for attaching your handle connectors. So when I go to attach them, I'm going to go off because I've got to punch holes and I've got to attach them. So I'm going to go off to do that. So for mine, I took my pattern piece end piece and I traced out the corners, and these are the corners here you can see. So I didn't trace the whole rectangle, just the one corner, the corners that are closest to where this curve is. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to place my handle connector right at that line, so lining up the side edge with the side of the connector and the top edge with that line at the top. So just like that. So see, there's that line, slide it over and you place it just like that. And then what I'll do is I will mark where the holes are for the screws to go in, and then I'll cut those holes out, and I'll also measure and cut holes out on my handle because the handle goes into the handle connector and it'll look just like this when it's on the bag. So, and I know I said I wasn't going to do this on camera, but just to kind of quickly show you. So this piece is the same width and height as the connector. So I can take that and I can line it up with that top straight edge and the side edge. Do it over here, top straight edge and side edge. And that's where I need to punch my holes. And I just need to find my press because I need my screws to be able to get through to those holes. And same thing on my handle. Marking the holes that I need to punch on my handle, and yours may be different. Again, follow the manufacturer's instructions. Okie dokie. So I see where the hole is. I'm going to line it up, punch it down. Oh, my speaker thing came off. Come on. There we go. The little foam piece. So I'm punching all the holes. It seemed easier than I thought it would. Now, another thing I'm going to do, just for extra stability, is I'm going to add a piece of interfacing behind my connectors. it's going to go between my washer and between my material. So on the back here of the bag. If I was using foam on my bag, I probably wouldn't add this. Because it's a bit thicker with the foam. And again, I know I said I wouldn't show you this, so I'll show you how to attach one, the way I do it with this, and then we'll go off and attach the others. I don't want my need to find the screwdriver that fits these. Oops. Perfect. This is probably where I'm going to take the longest, is getting this all lined up. So just getting it started. And then this is the tricky part, is trying to find if I'm going in, which I don't think I am. Nope. So as you can see, it's a bit tricky. So basically I have to keep fiddling with it until I find where it's lined up. Well, you get the point. I'm not going to make you sit there and watch me fiddle with this and try to figure it out. So I'm going to go off, I'm going to attach the other 3, and then I'll come back and we will continue on. Alright, so I got those connectors attached, and I will admit it was a bit of a feat for me, but I got it done and I figured it out how to get it done faster other than the way I showed you. But if you're attaching something similar to these, please use your manufacturer's instructions, and that's how they look. And another thing, when you're attaching your straps, please make sure that your handles are not twisted when you're attaching them. I forgot to mention that before I went off camera, so you'll want to make sure that they're not twisted. So now what we need to do is we need to take our 2 exterior panels and we need to grab our side panels that we sewed or attached our connectors to previously. And I actually caused a blister on my hand using that screwdriver, and it really hurts. So one thing I forgot to note was that you can attach rivets here. So I'm going to actually pause again and go attach rivets at the top where my connectors are. You can do that on the other connectors, so the ones that are not in the variations and add-ons and the ones that are in the variation and add-ons. So I'm going to actually just pause quickly, attach my rivets, and then we'll come back and we will attach our sides to our bag, and then our bottom, and then our exterior is complete. So I've attached those rivets to the sides so you can see it here. Now, besides adding some decoration or some bling to your bag, it also adds a bit of extra security up here. However, if you do not have rivets, you can use Chicago screws. If you don't have that, what you can do is you can put your zipper foot on your machine and stitch as close as you can to the hardware here. Stitch down till you meet this line that we stitched across. Go across that line and back up, and then just sew a little X here, and that'll add that extra security in that area as well. Now, grab one of your exterior panels and one of your sides for now, and we're going to line up the side edge of the side exterior with the side edge of our exterior panel. So your exterior panel is right side up, your side panel is right sides down, so they're pretty sides touching. Line up those top corners, and then your bottom corners. Pin it together all the way down, and then we're going to sew this with the seam allowance that's given in the pattern. And you'll notice that it's angled, so this bottom edge here of the side exterior doesn't line up with the bottom edge of your main exterior, and that's correct. Don't try to force it to be lined up. It's not supposed to. I'm also going to attach the second side so that I can sew that right away. So I'm going to clip it in place. What's important is making sure those bottom and top corners are lined up. And you can also check to make sure that these center marks on your side panels here are lined up as well. So if those line up, you're good, and mine do. So now we'll sew this with the seam allowance given in the pattern. Trim your threads. Repeat that for the second side. And if you're worried about keeping an accurate seam allowance, what you can do here is you can draw that seam allowance along the edge. Oops, I kind of went off a bit here. You can draw that seam allowance along that edge and then just stitch directly on top of the line you drew. I used to do this when I started sewing, and sometimes I still do, just to really help make sure I keep an accurate seam allowance. Now we need to trim these seam allowances down, but not at the top edge. We're leaving the top and bottom untrimmed. So you're just going to kind of go at an angle, trim it. And the reason for that is we need that to be able to attach the bag together when we're completed, or when we're completing it. So there we have it. That's how that looks so far. Now we need to attach the other side. So I'm going to go off camera. I'm going to repeat that whole process for this second side, attaching the side, and you will have this lifting up a bit because you're attaching the two sides together. But just do the same thing, sew it together, and then we'll come back and we'll attach our bottom panel. So now that our exterior is sewn to, so the exterior main panels are sewn to our side panel, we have a bag that looks like this so far. Now we need to attach our bottom, and to do that, what you're going to do is, keeping the bag wrong sides out, you're going to line up your center marks on the long edge of the bottom with the center marks on the exterior main panel. So you'll line up that center mark on the long edge of the bottom with the center mark on the exterior. So see how it's the long edge of the bottom panel is with the exterior main. Flip it over. Center mark with the center mark. Clip it in place. And then your sides, the center marks on the sides will match up with the center mark on the rounded edges of your bottom. Once we have these pinned on the side edges, we'll go back and we'll pin the rest of the way around. So see how we have this pinned? Here's my sides with the curved edges and the long straight edge with the straight edge of the exterior main. So now I'm going to clip the rest of the way, easing the fabrics in. Another thing I'm going to do is use my extension table. That's going to help me sew this bottom better, and it won't be falling off the edge of my machine. And another thing we'll do is we'll add clips in the curves, so little snips, and what that does is it helps open up the fabric so that it lays flatter and we don't get puckers, and it just helps ease it in more. I'm opening up this seam allowance here from where the side seam meets the exterior side seam. I'm just opening up that seam. And again, the right side, if I look down into my bag right now, I can see the right side of my bottom. And right now what I'm looking at is all the wrong sides of the materials. I wanted to make note of that just to make sure you're pinning it the correct way. My extension table, and now what we're going to do is we're going to make those snips in the curves, and I'm just going to make them between my clips. I probably shouldn't have put my extension table on yet. I'm just going to make the snips in between all my clips, and I'm doing it within the seam allowance, so don't go further than your seam allowance. So you'll want to make note of what the seam allowance is before you start making snips. And I know some people like using staples for this part when they go around curves. So whatever method you have, if you're someone who likes to use that, go ahead and do that. You can use the staple method. It is mentioned in the pattern here. That's why I'm mentioning it. Can't snip that. And as I mentioned, this just helps spread the fabrics. It opens it up so they lay flatter so you don't get puckers. Just eases it in. Okay. Oops. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start on a straight edge. I'm going to remove a clip or two just so that I can get it under my presser foot. Back stitch at start and stop. So I've back stitched. Now you can use a stiletto here too if you find that a stiletto will help. I try not to remove my clips until my presser foot is touching them. And I'm going slow on the curves to really make sure that the fabric is staying flattened. Try to keep an accurate seam allowance. Again, you can draw your seam allowance on this part as well, and you can just stitch right on top of it. So we're done one curve. Hit my finger there. And I'm coming back to where I started, so I'm going to back stitch, snip my threads, remove my table. Let's just see what it says. All right, so there is an option to add a second row of stitching, which I will go back and do. And this is just more for security. And you're doing it to the outside of your original stitching. So not inside, but outside. So staying where that seam allowance is. And it's a little bit easier to sew now because we already have it all stitched together. I think that was the tape I put over my, over those connectors there. This extension table out of my way. So I'm going to turn this just so I can see if there's any puckers or anything, because now is the time to fix them if there is any, or any unevenness or any wonkiness that you're just not extremely happy with. I will trim this seam allowance down. Help get everything pressed out nicely too. No puckers. Looks great. This is how it's looking so far. It's really pretty. I really like it. Obviously we're missing the bottom stabilizer and the lining to help hold it as well. So I'm just going to trim my seam allowance. And I'm using my pinking shears here. That'll help with the curves. You can also check your stitching too as you're trimming, and if anything looks a little wonky or off, you can fix it. There we go. So I trimmed that seam allowance down. So we're going to put this to the side now. Next, we're going to move on to the interior of the bag. So for this, we need one of our lining pieces and our slip pocket. I don't know where my slip pocket went. I found it. Slip pocket piece. So this is piece J is what you need. So we'll move that to the side. Sorry, my light, I hit it. So this is your slip pocket piece, and we need to fold it so it is right sides together. And if you haven't already, transfer your center marks on your pattern pieces to your fabric pieces. So with your slip pocket right sides up, we're going to fold it in half so that the long bottom edge meets the top edge. And I marked a T so I knew where the top was on my pattern piece, so I know when I'm folding this which way was what. So we're going to clip it together. I just want to make sure that corner lines up. And now we're going to sew this edge using the seam allowance given in the pattern. Now we need to turn this pocket right sides out. But before I do that, what I like to do, and this is just a personal preference, is I like to press this open, this seam open, then I turn it right sides out, then I press my pocket. So I'm just going to go press this at my iron, turn it right sides out and press it, then we'll come back and top stitch it. All right, so I've given that a press, just like I said I would. Now we need to top stitch the pocket. So we're going to top stitch. There's 2 lines of stitching that we're going to use, so you'll want to make note of that. I've changed my stitch length to the length I like to use for top stitching. So whatever your preferred stitch length is for top stitching, go ahead and change your stitch length. And it's very important to make the 2 rows of stitching because we use those later when we're stitching the pocket to the bag. Don't forget to return your stitch length. So I don't know if you can see my stitching, but there it is. And I've already pressed my bottom edge. I did that when we were pressing the bag there, or pressing the slip pocket there. Now on your pattern piece, there's some marks that you need to make for where to place your slip pocket. And you can see I've done it here and here. So that's where you're going to place the slip pocket. So the top of the pocket will line up with that line you did at the top. So we'll pin it in place, and the bottom of the pocket will line up with that bottom line. And this is also how you'll know if you've done an accurate seam allowance when you stitch the pocket together. All right, now what we're going to do is we're going to top stitch along the bottom edge of the slip pocket. Trim all your threads. Now we're going to fold the pocket in half because we want to create a crease. And you could draw this, but I don't want to stop the camera again. I feel like I keep pausing. So I'm just finger pressing it so I get that center crease. So now I can see my center crease. So now what we're going to do is we're going to stitch down the one side across the bottom. Then we're going to go up the center line, and you're stopping at that second bottom row of stitching, not the top row of top stitching, the bottom row, stitching across that, pivot, then you turn and you go back down that center line, across the bottom and up the side. And you want to pay attention to the measurements given in the pattern for how far away from the center line, how far away from the bottom line. You want to pay attention to that. So starting on the side, don't forget to backstitch, that's very important. Now I'm going across the bottom, and I got to pay attention to where my center crease is. Up the center. Now I'm going to stop when I reach that top stitching line we made. And if you have to maneuver or take a smaller stitch length, you can do that. Just like that. I take one stitch, pivot and go across. Before I go, I want to take another stitch, trim all your threads. And that's how your pocket will look. You have two slip pockets inside. Now, you can add a rivet up here at the top, which I will. And I normally go off camera to do this, but I'm just going to do this here. And I'm going to add a bit of interfacing behind it. Just for some extra stability. And I'm eyeballing the center. So you can see the center crease. Grab out my rivets. And if you don't have rivets, you can again use Chicago screws here. You could even sew a little box with an X like I was explaining on the, I'm trying to remember what it was, the side connectors. Or instead of stopping at that second row of stitching, you can go all the way up. And that'll help secure the top edge of that pocket, because that's what this rivet is doing, is securing the top edge. Ow. That's really heavy and it just, ow, something cut into me. So that's how the pocket looks. You can see my little rivet there. I hope you can see the stitching. Move it over into the light more. And we have our two pockets. So let's place this off to the side for now. We're going to grab our remaining lining. Oops, I don't want that. Our remaining lining and our zipper overlay and our zipper pocket pieces. And this is exactly the same as I showed for the exterior. So we're going to fold this in half so we can get that center crease. Some double-sided tape along the top and bottom edges of the zipper overlay. And normally I wouldn't show this a second time, but why not? I really love all the options of this bag, especially how it has so many pockets. And there's even a water bottle that you can add, or a cup or glasses case holder, which I love. I'm not adding it. I love it, but if this bag is going to be for me, which I always make these bags intending for me, I don't usually put my water bottle in my purse. So there's a mark that you need to make on your pattern piece from the top down, which is actually on the paper template, and you'll measure down. And I just want to see if I've done that right. And I'm going to check. I'm going to go off camera and I'm just going to check quickly, and I'll come back and we will continue on. I had to think. All right, so now we're ready to stitch our zipper overlay around the outer edge. Again, don't back stitch at start and stop, leave long thread tails, and pull them through to the back when we're done and tie them off. I almost back stitched there. And I'm doing what I always do in the corners. Taking that one stitch to really make sure I don't get angled corners. Move these threads out of the way because I don't want to stitch over them. And remember, we stop in the hole we started in. So just like that. Knot them. And then we need to cut out that opening. So again, with our seam ripper, start cutting the opening, and then grabbing for the wrong scissors. With our scissors, we can cut all the way up to, and remember, you don't need it to be perfect, sorry, but cut it all the way up to our overlay. Flip it over. Cut. There we go. Trim it. And remember, again, doesn't have to be pretty. No one's going to see it. It's going to be between the layers, unless they take the bag apart, of course, but I don't imagine anybody would do that. Now we need to grab our zipper. Still have so much hardware in here. I think it's because I have some rivets in there for some reason. I don't know why I did that. So this is going to be on the back of my bag. So we need to add the double-sided tape to the bottom and top edge of the zipper. And because this is going on the back of my bag, I'm going to want it to open the same way my exterior does. So I have to figure that out. There's really no right or wrong way to have your zipper pockets open or close. It's whatever you prefer. Unless it's really important, the designer will mention it in the pattern that it's important to have it open a certain way or close a certain way. So we're centering this in the zipper window opening. And now we're going to flip it over because we have to add that first zipper pocket piece. So zipper or double-sided tape along the bottom edge of the zipper. Place your first zipper pocket piece right sides down, lining it up with the bottom of the zipper tape, pressing it in place along the bottom edge. And what I like to do is I just like to check to make sure my measurements are going to stay accurate. I'm reaching my pull, so I'm going to zip it out of the way. All right. Pull these through to the back and tie them off. So I'm just tying the knots. Tie them a few times. And again, you can add the dab of glue if you want to help secure the knot. As I mentioned previously, I haven't had any issues with knots coming undone because I do tie it, as you can see, quite a few times. And I know it's sort of hard to see what I'm doing because I'm using a pink thread. I should have went with a different color, but I wasn't sure what color to use. So now we're going to flip this one down. I'm going to use a pin to help hold it down. And now we need to attach our second piece to the top edge of the zipper. Again, right sides down against the wrong side of the zipper. We're going to stitch up the short edge across the top and back down the other short edge, starting and stopping in the previous stitching. Make sure your zipper pocket piece is not under your needle. That's why I've pinned it. Oops, I just want to move that out of the way. And when you approach that zipper pull, which I'll move mine now, you want to zip it out of the way. And now we get to pull these threads through and tie them off. And then once we're done tying them off, we're going to trim the two pockets so they are even, and then take it to our iron and press using that measurement given in the pattern. So I'm going to pause the camera because trimming them even is pretty easy, and you need to use the measurement given in the pattern for how much we're pressing these to the wrong side. And what we're doing that for is because we're not stitching this pocket closed, because we're going to be turning the bag through the pocket, so we need that open so that we can do that, and that's why we're turning it under, because it'll make it easier to stitch closed later. So I'll pause the camera, and then when I come back, I'll have that all done, pressed, and ready to go. And we'll just sew the sides of our pocket. All right, so I've pressed those bottom edges. Now we're going to sew down the sides. And I'm just going to peel back the double-sided tape that is still on the zipper so I don't stitch through it, just like I did before. And you'll sew this using the seam allowance given in the pattern. Trim your threads, and we'll sew up the second side. And remember, we're not sewing the bottom closed. We're leaving that open for turning the bag through later. Remove my clips. Excuse me. And there we have it. Our zipper pocket is complete for our lining with the zipper overlay. Now we can set this off to the side and we're going to move on with the next step. Now we need to work on our main zipper closure, and for this we need our interior top band pieces. Just want to make sure I'm calling them the right name before. Yes, interior top band. And we need our main zipper closure. So grab your zipper, your main zipper. Now I'm going to be doing the recess zipper variation, so I do need my 2 recess zipper panels for this. But I'll walk you through how to attach your zipper to your 2 interior top band pieces. So move these out of the way for now so we can focus on our zipper. So for your zipper, if you haven't already, you can add your pull. It's not really needed. You can actually add the zipper pull at the end when we have our zipper done. So I will just slide my zipper pull off for now and I'll put it in my bag. I don't want to lose it, and we'll just attach it after. Now, in the pattern, there is a mark that you need to make on your zipper, and if you see, I'm trying to put it in the light, I did make that mark already right there. So let's see if I can get this closer and you can see it. Might have messed with my focus, so I'm just going to make sure my camera is still focused. So I did make that mark, and it's from the top or one of the short raw edges down. We'll open up the zipper a little bit, grab our pins, and then what you need to do is you need to fold your zipper ends, and what this does is it creates a stop. So you're folding them at a 90-degree angle. Now I do have a tutorial showing how to do this in depth, and I will link that below as well with all the other tutorials. But what you do is you pinch it where you made that mark. So you pinch the zipper so it folds, so it goes wrong sides together, just like that, right on that mark. So I folded it and it's gone back. Now with that fold, I'm still pinching it with my fingers. I'm going to bring the zipper teeth so that it goes up above. Just going to get closer to the camera. The teeth go up above where I folded. So fold it down at that line, just like that. So it's gone back on itself. And see these teeth right here? I'm going to bring it so that they go above the fold. So that fold is right there where the zipper teeth are, right underneath the zipper teeth. And once you do that, you can add a pin to hold it in place. Just like that. So it'll look like that. And on the back side, you kind of have this little like triangle on the back side. Let's see if you can see it. I'm going to move the light so you can see. So you see the little triangle there on the back side? So it kind of creates that little triangle. So again, press it back on itself, hold the fold, and bring it so that the teeth are above the fold. Just like that. Now I'm going to stitch those in place. And I'm just going to hand crank the first few so I can get past the needle. Trim your threads. And we'll repeat that for the second one. Trimming my threads. And that's how it looks once it's all trimmed up. Now, any of the little overhang, because we do have a small amount of overhang, you can trim that off. And then that's how your zipper will look once you get it all trimmed up. Nice and clean finish edges. Now, if you're doing the top interior band and you're just attaching the zipper right to it and you're not doing the recessed zipper panels, there is some marks on your top interior band that you need to make. And I've already gone ahead and done that, and I've done them on the back just so that when I'm going through the video you can see them better. So I've already made my marks, and the marks are given on the pattern piece, and you can use your pattern piece to mark them, and you're mirroring the marks so that on one side they're on both sides, or on each side they go in the same amount when your pieces are facing like this. So when the straight edges touch, the marks are on the same edges. So you'll want to do that. Once you have those marks made, what you're going to do is take your interior top band and place it right sides up. And then you're going to take your zipper so that the folded edge lines up with the mark on what would be your left-hand side here. So you're going to line up the folded edge of your zipper. So there's my mark. And I'm lining up that folded edge of the zipper with that mark. So if you look on the back, my zipper lines up with that mark. You can use some double-sided tape to tape it down. And then you're going to stitch this in place. Stop stitching at the mark you made from the right-hand side over. And in the pattern she says, once you have this mark down, you should transfer that mark to your zipper. So you would transfer the mark to the zipper, and that's where you know to stop stitching. Once you have that side attached, you'll repeat that with the opposite side, and you will have your interior top band attached. So you'll flip it over, or you can separate your zipper tape, which I'll do. So you separate your zipper tape, so put that to the side, and then you'll repeat that for the second side. So again, keep your pieces like this so you don't get confused. Line up the long straight edge of the zipper with the long straight edge of the interior top band, the folded edge with that mark. And right now when I'm looking at it, if you're looking at it from the right side, so it's facing you like this, it'll be from the right side over. And then lay it down, transfer your mark on your zipper, and stitch from one end all the way to the other end. And that's how you're going to attach the zipper to your interior top band. Now, if you find it easier and less confusing, you can keep your zipper attached and attach it that way so that you don't get them twisted and end up with them the wrong way. That's an option if you choose. Now, I'm doing the recessed zipper, so we're going to show you how to do that. Just have to get to it here in the pattern. It's a lot of scrolling. All right, so the recessed zipper panels, they look like this. And there are some marks that you need to make on your recessed zipper panel. And again, I've marked those on the ends here. So on the short ends, you'll make those marks. And then what we will do is we need to fold these short ends in to meet that mark just like that. So you're folding them so they go to the wrong side and they meet that line. You can add some double-sided tape to the end, but if you're using some quilting cotton, something you can press with your iron, you can press it first, then use your double-sided tape to attach it. Now I'm going to quickly put my pull on. I shouldn't have taken it off, but I might take it off again. But just to show you how to do this, where did it go? There it is. So I'm going to put my pull on. My zipper helper is not close, so it's crooked. Probably easier if I had my zipper helper. Should just get my zipper helper. So what I'm going to do is press, there we go, press my zipper panels to the wrong side as I showed you, and then I'll use some double-sided tape to hold it down. So I'm going to go off camera and press those. So again, you're using the measurement given in the pattern, and from the short edges of both zipper panels, you're measuring over, then you're pressing the short edge in to meet that line you made. So I'm going to go off camera, I'm going to press that, and then I'll come back and we will continue on. All right, so I've pressed the ends of my zipper panels, both of them. So you'll see this one's pressed and this one. Now what we need to do is, if you don't have your pull attached, she does have you take the top of your zipper and turn it to the bottom end, not the folded, and mark the side where the first tooth, we will need to remember which side was what when we attach our pull later. I'm leaving my pull on because I attached it. Now, put one of your zipper panels aside and take one and lay it right sides up in front of you, just like this. So it's right sides up looking at me. And I know that this is the edge that I want my zipper to be on, this bottom edge here, because I actually cut these so that the image of the flowers would line up. So this is my edge that I want my zipper tape to go on. Now there is a mark from the center of your zipper panel that you need to make to the right on your one panel, and then on your other, when it's looking at you, it's going to be to the left, so that when they are matched together, the mark lines up on the same side of each panel. So now that I have that done, we're going to take our zipper tape and we're going to place the long straight edge of our zipper tape onto our zipper panel, and you're going to line up the curve of your teeth with that mark you made away from the center. Now I'm going to use some double-sided tape here to help hold my zipper in place. You don't have to, but this is just a personal preference because I really like how it holds it all together. I'm not going all the way to the edge, just a little bit away from it. And I'm going to align the folded edge of my zipper tape with that mark I made. So just like that. Ah. Oh no, the zipper pull got stuck and then the tape came off. That's not good. It's sticking to my fingers. Look at this. gonna have to redo the tape because it keeps sticking to my fingers. That's frustrating. Let's try this again. Of course that would happen, well, on a video. All right, here's hoping this stays. So the folded edge of the zipper tape is going with that mark I made from the center, lining up the straight edge of the zipper tape with the straight edge of the zipper panel. So just like this. So that's where my mark is right where my zipper teeth are. Once we have that done, you then need to take this and fold it over. And I'm going to stitch a little stop back here. And I'm gonna guess my bobbin is empty. Yep, I'll have to fill my bobbin, but first I'll show you how to do this. So now we need to flip that other side over, and I'm going to again use some double-sided tape. I just like how it holds it all in place, nothing shifts on me, and it just looks really nice and clean. You don't have to use double-sided tape if you choose not to. So when you're folding this over, you want to line up these folded edges on the side. So those edges we turned under, you want to line those up and also line up those bottom straight edges. So you're lining everything up so it's nice and neat. And if you have to make adjustments, make your adjustments. Just like that. So it looks like that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to sew this edge. So I will show you that. I'm just going to go off camera. I'm going to fill my bobbin really quick and I'll come back and we will do that. All right, bobbin is all loaded. We are ready to sew our zipper panel. So starting from the edge that is folded, we will stitch all the way across using the seam allowance given in the pattern. And don't forget to backstitch at start and stop. Now, she does mention not to stitch all the way to the end where the folded edge is, so don't go all the way to the end. What I'm going to do is carefully trim this little corner here without trimming the zipper or my stitches, just to help make this turn nicer. Get my poking tool. I'm going to clip these edges together. Normally what we would do is go to our iron, give this a press, and then top stitch, but so that I don't have to get up and down so much, I'm going to do it all at once. So we're going to attach the second side, and then we'll top stitch. And the clips are just helping hold it together, kind of training it to be folded down, but that's how the first side looks. Now we need to do this with the second zipper panel. So lay it so it is right sides up. And if you find it easier to have your zipper zipped, you can. Now here's my mark. So here's my center right there, and there's my mark. Now we're doing this on the opposite side. So last time we were adding it to the right side of the panel, now we're adding it to the left. Using my double-sided tape. Press it down. zipper pull again. It wants to stick to the tape on me. Make sure everything is tidy. Add some more double-sided tape. Again, you don't have to use double-sided tape. You can use just clips here. I just find that double-sided tape really helps hold everything in place, and I get no shifting. So taking that folded edge, the short folded edge, and lining it up, and also lining up the bottom straight edge. All right, now we have it all done. So that's how it looks again, and we're going to stitch that side. Again, start and stop, do the back stitching. And I'm going to clip this little corner here again, carefully clipping so that I don't clip my threads. If for some reason you accidentally clip those threads, just go back over and sew back over that area, back stitch over that area, and it'll help relock in those stitches. So I'm going to clip it. I don't need that anymore. Clip it together just so you can see how my zipper panel looks before I go and press it. So there it is. There's my zipper panel, all pressed, or not pressed, all sewn in. Everything is nice and neat. Now I'm going to go and press this, and then we'll come back and we'll stitch up a short side across under the zipper here, down the other short side and across the bottom. And we'll do that on both sides. So I'm going to go press this and I'll be right back. Okay, so my panels are all pressed. Now we need to top stitch. As I said, we go up one short side, across the top under the zipper here, down the other short side, and back across the bottom raw edge. You can use your favorite top stitch length here. I'm running over my cord. Excuse me. All right, so back stitch at start and stop. And I like to start on the raw edge, just wanted to share that. I like to start on the raw edge so the back stitching never gets seen. If you have a dangly zipper, you'll want to ensure it's out of the way. You don't want to hit that. You don't want to break a needle or worse, cause damage to your machine. And I am taking that one extra stitch in the corner so that I don't get angled stitches. And I'm back where I started and I back stitch. I'll trim threads after. Oops. need to take shorter stitch lengths when you get to your corners in order to, oh, I hit my speed, in order to have a perfect seam allowance. I mean, no one's going to go in with a ruler and measure on you. But if you need to do that, you can. All right, let's trim all our threads, and I'm even going to trim any loose threads along the raw edges. It happens. Just give it a little haircut. You just don't want peekaboo threads later. Of course, it just dropped all over my lap. I'll have to brush that after. All right, so that's how it looks when it's all top stitched. Very pretty. Now, time to pin it all together. We need to grab one of our lining main panels and our recessed zipper panel. And we need to mark the center of our zipper panel. To do that, fold the zipper panel in half, lining up those edges. And I give it a crease, and then I mark it with my pen. My chalk pen here, because it's dark fabric, so I need the chalk pen so I can see it. Now, I'm starting with my zipper pocket because I want my zippers to go in the same direction. I don't want the zipper to open this way, so I'm starting with my zipper pocket. However, in the pattern, Andrea does start with the pocket that the lining panel that has the slip pocket. And you can start with that. But as I said, I want my zippers to be facing the same way. So I'm starting with this. So we'll line up. So lining panel, right sides up. Take your zipper panel, line up the center marks, and you're lining up the two top raw edges. And you'll notice my zipper is facing up. So it's lining side or wrong side of the zipper tape against my lining panel, and my zipper is right sides up. Pin it together along that straight edge. Just like that. Now, what we'll do here is we'll baste this in place using the seam allowance given in the pattern, and I'm going to leave my stitch length long because it's just a basting stitch. What a basting stitch does is it holds everything in place for you. So you can have a longer stitch length. I'll put my stitch length back to the length I use for stitching my bags together. Trim your threads. And now what we need to do is grab one of our top bands and you want to line up the top of the lining panel with the bottom straight edge of your top interior band. So you're going to line them like this, then flip your top interior band so it is wrong sides up, but it is right sides together with your lining. You will have your zipper panel sandwiched in between. Line up your center marks. Again, I have a dangly zip, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pin it to my recessed zipper panel for now, the one underneath. I don't want it going underneath my needle accidentally and breaking a needle. Now what we're going to do is we're going to stitch this to our lining panel using the seam allowance given in the pattern. And again, if your stitch length hasn't already been changed to your length you use for stitching your bags together, you'll want to make sure it's changed before you start stitching. Trim your threads. You can trim all if you want. Now we're going to turn the seam allowance towards the lining main panel. So looking at it like this, flip this so it goes up and you flip the seam allowance down towards the lining panel. So I'll show you. I'm going to flip this over and this seam allowance is going to go down towards your lining panel. So this makes your zipper panel go up right now. I'm going to take this to my iron and give it a press, and then we'll come back and we will top stitch. Now that this is pressed, we need to top stitch along this edge. Now, I wanted to note, I used a vinyl here, so I have to be careful when I'm pressing that I don't touch my vinyl because you can burn it or melt it. So you be very careful when you're pressing this. You don't want to put your iron right over top of it. I just went right along that edge. So stitch length for the top stitch length you like to use, and you're stitching on top of your main lining, and your recessed zipper panel is currently facing up towards that top band. So that pushes that seam allowance down towards the lining. Now we need to repeat that for the second side. So grab your second lining, place it so it is right sides up. You're going to place your zipper panel so it is, again, wrong side of the zipper against the right side of the lining. Line up your center marks. Pin it together all the way across. And then we'll stitch that together using the seam allowance given in the pattern. And again, I'm keeping it at my top stitch length because we're basting at this moment. We'll cut our threads. And now we need to add that top band. We'll take the top exterior band and we'll do the same thing we did on the other side. So right sides down. I'm just going to clip this out of the way for now so you can see. So I'm clipping the one that was originally attached down out of the way. I'll put a pin here just to hold my zipper pull down. So top interior band, right sides down, line up your center marks, line up the corners, get everything all lined up, pin it the rest of the way. And then same thing, we will stitch this across this top edge here using the seam allowance given in the pattern. Oh, and I forgot to change my stitch length. There we go. Trim all your threads. And then again, press that seam allowance so it is down towards the lining panel. And I'm just going to finger press mine so I don't have to get up again. Now you have all this bulk here, so you got to make sure it doesn't end up underneath your needle. So I'm going to roll it up, change my stitch length, back stitch. Just make sure the only thing that's under your needle at this moment is the lining panel and the zipper panel that you just attached. You don't want the other side here under your needle. I've done it before, you just have to unpick everything and re-stitch it. A little bit more work if that happens, but it's okay. It's fixable. Change my stitch length, and that's how it looks looking down from the top. And if you're looking in from the bottom of the bag, that's how it looks. We need to finish assembling our lining, and to do that, we need to clip our darts first and sew those. So we'll clip the darts together. So you take your dart and you clip it so it is right sides together. Doesn't want to cooperate. There we go. Do that on all your darts. We need to close up these dart holes. So I've clipped all my darts so they are right sides together, and you have that edge that is lined up. Back stitch at start and stop. And the darts here help give the shape to the bottom of the bag. So that it'll fit nicely inside the exterior. Now what we need to do is pin our linings together, and you want to pay special attention to this top edge here where your interior band met your lining, And you want to line up that seam that's there. So where that folded edge that we pressed down towards the lining, you want to line that up, clip it in place. We'll clip all the way down the side. And where your darts are, you want to press your fabrics away from each other, that seam there. So have one going to the left and one going to the right, and that's nesting those fabrics. We'll do this for the other side, and I'm going to pin this zipper tape to my lining so that it doesn't get in the way. Again, lining up that seam where the interior band meets the main lining. Clip it all the way down. Nest that seam, the darts. And I'm going to try to do this so that they're the same on both sides. This one goes up and this one goes down. We'll just make it easier later. All right. Now we're going to sew this. Oh, I'm on my camera or my microphone cord. We're going to sew this using the seam allowance in the pattern, and you're going to sew all the way down, going just past the dart. Back stitch at start and stop. I'm going to back stitch over that seam there. Make sure everything stays nice and flat under my presser foot. And right now I'm not super concerned about any threads. I can go back and do that after. Flip to the other side. Remember, keep those darts pressed the way we pressed them. Now, we need to trim the seam allowance. Not right at the top though, leave the top and bottom untrimmed. And I'm using my pinking shears here. And I got to the bottom. I'll just trail off the fabric. All right, we can take a look inside. I'm going to remove that clip, but right now our bottom is open. Don't panic, we're going to take care of that after, but that's to help turn the bag right sides out, and then the zipper pocket that we left open will help us pull the lining through after to close the lining bottom up. But that's how that looks right now. I'm going to finger press these open. The top here. You can even stitch them, which I will, to hold them open. So just stitch along the top, just at the top where that seam is. And that will help hold it open. And this is just important for when we're putting the bag together, so we don't have the bulk all going in one direction. I will need my extension table again. I'm going to do the same thing with my exterior. Just going to stitch that open. Just holds it in place for me. You can do this same thing if you want. If not, you can skip this step. This is just more of a personal preference. Now we're on the final assembly of the bag. Now we need to put the lining into our exterior. So to do that, take your lining, turn it right sides out, and place it inside the exterior. Now, I want my zipper pockets to be away from each other. I don't want them on the same side. Remember, I want one on the back, the lining one. We're going to line up the side seam of the lining, so that seam where the linings were joined together, with our center mark on our side panel. Clip it in place. Make sure your handles, if they're already attached, are pushed down into the bag. Line up the center seam on the main panels. Again, make sure your zipper is pushed down into the bag, just like your handles. So line up those center marks. And then we can clip the rest of the way around. So I'm just adding all my clips. All right, so it's all clipped. I'm going to grab out my extension table. And now what we're going to do is we're going to sew around the interior and exterior together. So sew all the way around it, using the seam allowance given in the pattern. And I'm going to start at a straight edge. And you want to make sure that everything is pushed down in the bag. The only thing you should be sewing through are your exterior and your lining. And I'm going very slowly on these curves. Pivoting very slowly so I keep a nice even seam allowance. Take your time going around these curves. You want to keep an even seam allowance, like I just did do there. And by going slowly too, you can adjust as you go. Now we are done sewing it together. I'm just going to, check, move this out of the way. I'm just going to check that my seam allowances are good, which they are. Now you need to trim the seam allowances here along the straight edges and make notches in the curves. And these notches in the curves will help with the bag turning nicely at this top curve here. I'm just going to make extra little snips just into the curves, just to really make sure, but I'm being careful not to cut my stitching. Okay, so now that we have that done, so it's all trimmed, we're going to turn our bag right sides out through the opening in the bottom of the bag, so in that bottom lining. Wow, why is this so hard? Okay. I'm not going to really concern myself with pressing too much yet, because we need to top stitch our bag. Now I don't have a free arm on my machine, so what I actually need to do is push my exterior into my lining. Make sure that I have my interior top bands up. wrangle it a little bit. And I'm going to add some clips along that top edge, but before I do that, I'm going to go in with my pressing tool and push out the top edge here, especially around the curves. You really want to get these curves nicely pressed out. Now, if you did the straight edge bag, you can still press it like how I'm doing to get your top edge pressed out. And then I'm going to add clips all the way around the bag. Tuck my handles down into the bag. And again, my lining is right sides out because I do not have a free arm on this machine. So you can use this method as well if you do not have a free arm on your machine. Feel like this is not pushed out. There we go. Now this zipper panel, when we're top stitching, we really want to make sure it stays down towards the lining and it doesn't get up underneath our top stitching. You want to be very careful with that. So there it is. Now we're going to grab my extension table because, again, gravity. Switch my length to my top stitch length, and now we're going to stitch all the way around the bag. We're not going to back stitch, we're actually going to leave long thread tails and we're going to feed them through to the between the lining and exterior so that it buries those threads and we can knot it that way. So I like to start at the back seam. Personal preference, you don't have to. But I like to start back there. And in these curves, I'm going to take it one stitch at a time. And if you're wondering what I'm doing, I believe I mentioned it before. Needle down, presser foot up, pivot slightly, put my presser foot back down and continue stitching. But I do that all the way around the curve until the curve is completely done. Just makes it so much easier. You get better stitching on the curves when you do that. So now I'm coming back to where I started, and I need to stop right in that same hole I started in. There we go. Pull your thread tails. Oops, I hit my light. Check your top stitching. It looks really pretty. So now I need a needle to be able to thread these through, and I have to find that. Oh, I don't know where it is. So I'm going to grab out my needle. And we're going to bury these threads inside between the lining and exterior. So I'm just going to pull out my exterior a bit so that I see more of my lining. And I'm going to knot them on the inside of the bag. So putting them together, thread your needle. I feel like I'm wearing the wrong glasses for this. Actually, I need to do this. Just gonna pull the threads all on the same side. I should have said that earlier. All 4 of them. And then thread them through, trimming them so they're even. I'm telling you, my hands just don't want to work today. This is really difficult. I don't know why. I'm trying to push the lining out of the way. Because I'm trying to see where this needle is wanting to go. Okay, there we go. And now what I'm going to do is separate them in 2s and then tie them off. I don't want this needle rolling off. I didn't want to lose that needle. I just keep knotting it till I'm feeling like the knot is secure. And I won't trim these threads, I'll leave that. Just in case some reason I gotta come back in and tie a knot, like I feel it loosening off or whatever. I've never had that issue, but I never trim these. Alright, where was that buried? Right here. And I can't even tell where I started and stopped. Right at the back. And you can't even tell where I started and stopped. I'm having a hard time even finding it. Now you can use some glue here or whatever you prefer. But I can't even tell where I started and stopped. So that's a good thing. Now, we need to put that bottom stabilizer in. I'm going to turn the bag so the exterior side is down because I know my hands and I won't be able to turn it if it's the other way. Oh, where was that clip? I've had clips where I've closed my bags before and I'm feeling around in my bag and I feel a clip. It's kind of funny. This is where you can actually check to see if everything is correct. So you can see the bag has taken its shape. It's a beautiful bag. Oh my, wow. All right. That bottom stabilizer now needs to be inserted. So your bottom stabilizer. And I did use a piece of Decoville Heavy and I fused some other interfacing over the fusible side. And you're slipping it into, you remember how we sewed those two end pieces on our piece, bottom piece? You're slipping it into there. So that acts like a little pocket, so to speak. I think I've got it going all the way in on the one side and then all the way in on the other. Come on. Oh, it went in. Nice. This side popped out, of course. One side goes in, one side pops out, and that side just popped out on me again. I might need to do this with my exterior out, but I don't know how it's going to be turning it. Ow. I'm just worried that once I get it turned, it'll pop out again anyways. But so there it is. Insert this into the bottom here. So you can see it's a good fit. I'm going to grab it like this, pull it out. It's got me feeling sore in the arms from all the turning. And it popped out just like I thought it would. On both sides. Oh, no. How frustrating. If you're feeling like your bottom stabilizer is a smidge too big, I thought I'd mention this just in case. You can trim it down so that it's not as big, so that it fits. Mine does fit, as we saw, but she's just fighting me. Let's see. I'm gonna stand up. Doesn't want to go in. I don't know why. super frustrating. Of course, this is happening while I'm filming. Nothing wants to cooperate here. I think I'm going to pause the camera. I'm going to try and get this inserted into the bottom, and then I will come back and we will continue on. I may turn this right sides out and apply some tape over top of the edges so it can't slip out, because it's slipping out as I turn it, and that's the frustrating part. But if I add some tape over it, it should help hold it in place. I'll come back and I'll let you know how that goes once I come back. So adding tape on the ends where those base, hang on, I want to make sure I call it the right piece. The bottom stabilizer overlay, so I put tape over it. That helped hold the stabilizer in while I turned the bag. Again, it was a bit of a workout, but I got it done. Now what we need to do is take our lining and pull it out through the zipper pocket. So you're pulling the lining out through the zipper pocket. And then we're going to clip the lining together. So we're going to line up those center marks. And then we're going to sew this with the seam allowance given in the pattern all the way across from one end to the other. I promise we are almost done. And just sew all the way across. Oops. Then push your lining back into your bag. Push it down into the bottom of your bag. Now you're going to pull out your zipper pocket, and remember we turned those raw edges under earlier, so those should be turned under for you. You're going to line it up. So pin at the sides where the seams are. So I've pinned that pressed edge. Now we're going to sew across this. Back stitch at start and stop. Trim your threads. I feel like I've had a huge workout. Now make sure your lining is pushed nicely into the bottom of your bag. You want to ensure your zipper pocket is pushed down. And I'm just pressing it down. Press this pocket down. Look at how cute it is. It's so pretty. And you may have done the slip pocket option on the back or on the front. It's your choice. It's your bag. You can have it as either side. You may have chosen that. Now we need to add our zipper end to our zipper. So I'm just going to quickly do that. And then we just have to add our, or make our adjustable strap. Why can't I open this? Okay. So you'll want to follow your manufacturer's instructions for your zipper end, but how I do it is just fold the zipper back onto itself, and then I use some clips to hold it in place. I'm going to add, a bit of glue into my zipper end. And the reason for that is just in case that screw falls out, this zipper end won't fall off. And I've tried to take them off before just to see after I've glued it, and you can't. So the glue does really hold. Just going to make sure this zipper is pushed in nice and evenly. And be careful because of that blister forming from adding those strap ends. Or not strap ends, the strap anchors. No, that's not the right screwdriver. There we go. Now if you find the zipper tail too long, you can definitely trim that. I do like a longer zipper tail, but the nice thing about a long zipper tail too is you can open your bag nice and wide. You can trim it so that, you know, it stops right here if you want, but I like a longer zipper tail, and I like that it shows off my hardware too. Now, the last thing we have to do on the bag is if your hardware has these little protection pieces, please remove those unless you want to keep them on. But I'm going to remove mine on any of my zippers. There we go. Now we need to make our adjustable strap. And as I mentioned earlier, I am using a webbing. I had to think about what I was going to say. I am using webbing, but to make your strap, what you need to do is thread the webbing or the strap up over that middle bar and then clip it in place. And you can either sew this or add a rivet. Now, I do want to add that I'm going to turn this one under. I would like to add some hardware to this, but maybe it's not totally necessary. Let's see. Let's see. I would have to fold the end of my webbing under a little bit so that I can beef it up inside. And you know what? I am going to add it because I do like how it looks. I like how it looks on the webbing. So I need to grab my glue again. This just helps hold the webbing or your strapping in place. Okay. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. I don't want to lose any of these. We're going to attach the screws. So I just folded it under, like I said, it beefs it up in here, inside the webbing, inside the, where that blister is, I'm going to end up ripping that skin open and it's going to hurt. I should have a pair of gloves for doing this or something over. These screwdrivers are not skin friendly, I guess you can say. All right, look at how pretty that looks on the end of that. Now I'm going to fold over my webbing onto my strap. And I will be using rivets, so I'm going to punch some holes. You can sew this, and I just heard a bunch of stuff fall off my cart. You can sew this if you want. I'm just going to go over here and use a ruler to measure because I want it to be the same distance on both sides. And again, like I said, I don't show measurements on camera. I might have to just sort of guess because I can't really see it. Okay, so now there's something so satisfying about that sound. There we are. Okay, so I'm just going to slide these out of the way. Now with our slider on, we can take our strap, and I'm laying it so my hardware and slider are facing up. I'm going to attach a swivel hook, slide it on, then again, so you see how it's there, I'm going to slide my strap up over the center bar, just like that. And now I'm going to lay it so the slider is facing down on my table. And I'm going to take my swivel hook and slide the strap through the swivel hook. And the swivel hook part is touching my table. And again, we need to repeat all those steps for attaching the hardware. I'm just trying to get out 2 screws so I can put these away. So I'll add some glue into the channel of the hardware. I'm going to press my strap so that it goes back towards the back of the strap, put my hardware on. Push it on. My problem is I grip the screwdriver too hard, or try to, and I think I'm not gripping it as hard as I think I am, and that's what causes the blister. Ah, yeah, 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 yeah. This one's not going in all the way. All right, and now again on this strap, I'm going to measure again. I want it to be the same as what I did on the other one. Okay. It's hard to tell which one's what when they're facing backwards. So now I'm going to clip my strap, add my rivet, here's the sound I like. I just love how it sounds when it clips all the way through. Push my rivets through. Away. This way. Thank goodness I'm done with this. I can give my hand a break for a little bit. There we go. There we go. You can sew that if you want close to the hardware and then sew a little X. I chose to use rivets just because I like how it looks. So now all that's left to do is to clip our strap to our bag. And I really like how the hardware looks on the strap. I just find it just fancies it up a little bit, especially with the rivets. Now, you may have chosen to opt out of having the adjustable strap, but I do like having it because if you want to go hands-free, you have an adjustable strap, especially if you did the shorter handles or the hardware handles on the front of the bag. This just can act as a shoulder strap and also your crossbody strap. So you sort of have three straps or three carrying options in one. So there you go, your Leannan bag is all complete. All you need to do now is take lots of pictures and share it on social media so we can all see your beautiful bags. I hope you enjoyed sewing along with me and maybe picked up a few tips and tricks along the way. Thank you, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Bye.